Now, let me go straight to the topic. The question is, what is the way forward? Well, my views are well known. The way forward is that this bill should not be allowed to proceed or to go anywhere. It should simply be withdrawn. Let me give you my reasons for saying so. Also, contrary to what Honorable Mwimbu has said, I don't think at all it needs to be taken to the people. It doesn't require refinement. And I think people have better issues to focus on. As a country, we are not in a crisis in terms of the Constitution. Our crisis is economic. Ideally, our discussion today should have been centered on how we can confront the economic challenges and not the Constitution. Now, let me give you a few reasons why I oppose this. Now, it's good to discuss Bill 10, but again, you can't discuss Bill 10 in a vacuum. You have to provide context to it. Now, in order to understand how we have ended up here, and also to look at the future, we need to understand the past. Now, this is one of the reasons why I oppose this bill. Now, this discussion concerning the Constitution is not a new discussion. In fact, we should be ashamed as a country that we have spent the last 29 years discussing the Constitution. Okay? There are more pressing issues. This debate started in 1991. Now, we can't go on talking about the same things day in, day out. Every president that comes in wants to bring about a new constitution. Now, the real challenge that we face in order to understand why we are here today is the fact that when we go back to independence, and I'm sure some of you are old enough to remember this, Zambia was one of the richest countries in Africa. In terms of per capita income, it was the third richest country, apart from South Africa and Libya. By the end of the 1980s, Zambia emerged as one of the poorest countries. Now, we ended up with an external debt of $7 billion. Now, if you divide the external debt at that particular time with a population of between 7 and 8 million then, this was roughly $1,000 of debt if you divide the external debt. Now, at the end of the 1991, the challenge was to try and understand how can a rich country, which started off very well, end up so poor? And Zambia was not alone in this regard. And there was massive research that was done by scholars and international organizations to try and understand the reasons why the country had become so poor. Now, one of the conclusions was that the Constitution was weak in the sense that it vested too much power in the president. As a result, Parliament could not check the president. The judiciary could not check the president. As a result, presidents were at liberty to come up with whatever policies they decided to do. We all remember the introduction of one-party rule in 1972. There was no discussion. There was again nationalization, again no discussion. I think most of you are old enough to remember that we used to have a body called the Prices and Incomes Commission. You remember that? Yeah. Now, this was the commission that was dictating the prices of each and every item. Now, these were some of the crazy policies that existed. Why? Because the president could not be checked. Now, in 1991, the challenge then was to say, how do we reduce on the powers of the president? That is what has been the challenge. Of course, the 1991 Constitution was abortive, and that was not realized. And 1996 again, there was a problem, and this continued. Now, the only time that we had a glimmer of hope was when President Sata came to power. Yeah, managed to do something that his predecessors did not fail to do. Now, the genesis to the current constitution is the technical committee. Now, President Sata specifically mandated the technical committee to draft a constitution, and I'm quoting from the terms of reference, to draft a constitution that ensures the separation of powers amongst the various state organs, including the executive, the legislature, and the judiciary, so as to create checks and balances between them and to ensure accountability of the state organs and its officers to the people of Zambia. In short, the government had to be accountable to the people, which was not the case then. The second point was that draft a constitution that will ensure that excessive and unfettered powers are given to any particular organ of state, commission, or constitution. Now, this was the mandate of the commission that was appointed, of the technical committee, which was appointed in 2012. Now, when President Lungu signed the current constitution as amended on 5th January 2016, the question is, did we do better than all the previous presidents? The answer is yes, we did far, far much better. Now, the effect of the changes of 2016 was that there was a considerable reduction in the powers of the president. Now, was the constitution perfect? No. But it was far much better than anything that we have known. Okay? Now, I oppose the changes contained in Bill 10 because the intention of Bill 10 is to reverse what was achieved in 2016. What basically the proposed amendments are intended to do is to give the president back the powers which were taken away in 2016. I know honorable members have been saying, well, there are only 79 clauses, 16 were controversial, and of the 16, 15 were rejected. That's not the point. When you start isolating one clause and analyzing it, then you're missing the big picture. The question is, what will be the effect of Bill 10 if it becomes law? That's what we should be talking about. Okay? Now, if, let's say, it becomes law, what you will see is a reversal of all the advances we have made, the progress we have made. And also, guys, let's not lie to each other. The idea is that this Bill 10 is geared towards the election anyway. Okay, that is the truth. Now, the point is this, you never use a constitution as a political tool. Okay? Yeah, we should not. Now, a constitution is supposed to be a revered, respected, a dignified instrument. Now, for instance, none of the proponents of the bill have told you, for example, the entire constitution is made up of 275 articles. Now, they have not told you how they ended up selecting 79 articles as the ones which they would like to change. And who made those decisions? What criteria was used in isolating or identifying these provisions? Now, so these are the problems. Now, the second point is that, you see, I've been listening to all these people that have been advocating for Bill 10. I have not been given a convincing reason to justify Bill 10. Okay? Now, everybody's saying, one of the arguments I've heard is that, no, the Bill 10 is designed to clean up the imperfections in the Constitution. But the question is, who has decided that there are actual imperfections in the Constitution? Because a constitution is drafted by human beings. So there may be always, you can look at it differently, I can look at it differently. Well, we can all read it and arrive at different conclusions. But I cannot impose my reading and understanding of the Constitution on you. Now, that is why we have a constitutional court. When we have differences of opinion over the Constitution, where do we go? We go to court. You don't begin to change to say you are cleaning it up. No, that's a lie, you know. And that is why, if you look at, there is a provision in the Constitution which says that only the Constitutional Court has authority to interpret the Constitution. Not the MPs, okay, not the president, not the ministers, but the court. That's why we have the court there. I have my view, you may have your view. When we disagree, what do? We go to court. And if there is a problem with the language, it is for the court to explain to us. I'll give you an example. I was involved in the case to do with a petition in 2016. Now, one of the issues we had was when the Constitution says that the petition shall be determined within 14 days. What did it mean? Okay, some people are saying, well, 14 days to start. It doesn't matter when you conclude. Other people say, well, you have to start, but 14 days does not include Saturdays and Sundays. Others said, well, but at the end of the day, the court cleared the position. It stated 14 days is 14 days, from start to finish. We have all been educated. So the next election, God forbid there is another election petition, all the lawyers know that time starts running from day one. When you file it, it has to be done within 14 days. So that has been clarified. You know, so you don't need to change the Constitution. It is too early to start reviewing the Constitution. The Constitution came into force on 2016. 3 years later, you want to change. Now, are you saying you didn't know what you're doing in 2016? We need to give the Constitution time. You know, we need to experience it. We need to give it life. You know, we need to see, because the Constitution needs to be tested. It is not for the minister to sit in his office and start telling us to say, I disagree with this provision. No. Okay? I'll give an example. For instance, when we had the Independence Constitution, the Independence Constitution was only changed in 1973. At least it was given 9 years. Okay? But again, it changed because Kaunda unilaterally introduced one-party state. So you needed a new constitution to reflect the one-party state arrangement. Place until 1991. Can you do the math? That is well over 17 years. Now, 17 years is a reasonable time for you to go back to the drawing board and review your document and see how well has it performed. Now, after that, we have the Constitution was amended in 1996. Now, from 1996, we only changed it in 2016. Now, how many years is that? 20 years. Now, 20 years at least is a reasonable time for you to say, well, we have seen this imperfection, okay? Now, it is simply too early. Because the problem is that, what you clearly see, from my point of view, is clearly a desire to use the Constitution in readiness for the election. There is absolutely no reason for it to be amended. Okay? Let me say the other point why that should be possibly my third or fourth point. The point is this, guys. Constitution is not a priority. Okay? It is not a priority. Okay? We have bigger problems. We have more immediate problems. The money that was spent on the NDF in terms of allowances would have been better spent. Now, I mean, even in our own personal lives, we do have priorities, isn't it? Now, how come as a country we can't have priorities? In the general scheme of things, what is the issue that is most pressing to Zambians? It's not the Constitution, okay? So far, we are not in a crisis. We have to allow this Constitution to be tested. We need to see we need to have the imperfections exposed, but it will be exposed only if we allow it to breathe, you know, and but not to begin to manipulate it for one's own objective. Let me just, I think that those are my reasons for opposing the bill. No genuine case has been made to support or to justify Bill 10. So the idea is, my appeal to the Honorable Member is simply to say there is no harm. For once, put aside your own interest. Put the interest of the country first. For once, let us be patriotic. Let's put Zambia first. Now, I can tell you, I strongly believed in this. Let me conclude by telling you this. I took the case to court to challenge Bill 10, and I can tell you I can't go into details because the final judgment. One of the things I can say without any hesitation, yes, the judiciary, I can't go into the reasons. The point is that they rejected it. They said, okay, fine, it's okay, it can go ahead. But in my view, they betrayed the Zambian people. But again, it is the duty of each and every judge that sat. If by deciding the way they decided, they can sleep comfortably in the night, that's okay. It's according to them. But the point is this. The beauty of our system is that once one safeguard has failed, you go to another safeguard. Now, the judiciary has failed as a safeguard. The only safeguard we have now are the MPs to make sure that the bill does not receive the 2/3 majority required. Our challenge is to make sure that the 2/3 majority is not realized. But again, in the event that that happens, then what is the point? What is the solution? Well, ultimately the power lies with us. I have no faith in the institutions of government, but I have faith in the Zambian people.
Thank you.